Welcome to my channel, BADCompanySarge, and my latest build, the Smuggler. If you're looking for any particular section, then there will be timestamps in the description, but if you want all of the info, then you can just keep on watching. The main skills of the build are speech and sneak. The Smuggler isn't a fighter. Instead, he tries to find other ways out of things. In the speech tree, you ideally want to get every single perk. The key ones, however, are the fence perk, in order to be able to sell stolen goods to a wide range of merchants, and bribery, for a way to pay your way out of minor crimes. As for the sneak tree, I ended up going up the right hand side to Assassin's Blade. However, I would like to stress this isn't to make the character stupidly powerful, but instead to help you occasionally kill the odd individual when you have no other choice. The additional skills are Archery, Alchemy, and Pickpocket. In Archery, the only perk you really need to get is Overdraw. Your crossbow is your main weapon, so you'll want to make sure it packs a decent punch whenever you need to use it. As for Alchemy, I went up to the Poisoner perk in order to create strong paralysis poisons. These are great for any character who doesn't deal out a ridiculous amount of damage, as it gives you time to deal with your opponent, be it by finishing them off, or through giving you time to escape. Finally, we have Pickpocket. Not only does this add to the criminal aspect of the build, but the Extra Pockets perk is great for carrying additional loot with you. For leveling with the build, I recommend splitting close to 50-50 between health and stamina. Health is good for taking a hit or two, but stamina is useful for both escaping from fights and improving your carry capacity, so I'd recommend prioritising the latter. As a race, I chose Imperial. The main reason I went for this was simply to get extra gold when looting. It's certainly not the best racial bonus, but I always like it for this kind of character. When starting out with this build, you will want to use the Thief Stone for leveling. After that, I recommend using the Serpent Stone, as it gives you a quick way to paralyse an enemy who gets too close. I considered using the Shadow Stone as well for a getaway, but it felt a little too mystical for this type of build. That being said, you could well justify it as some sort of smoke bomb the Smuggler picked up on his travels. Weapons aren't actually a huge focus of this build, however you will want to carry a couple with you. I decided to go with a steel dagger and steel crossbow. These are nice and simple weapons for a nice simple person. The crossbow in particular works well for character, as you just walk into Fort Dawnguard, pick it up, and then lead the vampire hunters to their crazy crusade. Although I didn't include it in the skills section, I would also recommend getting the steelsmithing perk. Not only to improve your weapons, but also to make steel bolts for your crossbow. This will stop you from having to constantly head back to the fort in order to get extra ammo. The Smuggler doesn't wear any armour. He's no warrior, so much prefers to wear casual clothing. Additionally, it's much better for blending into a crowd. Turns out standing around in a full suit of Daedric armour kind of makes you a little more conspicuous. As for my particular choices with the clothing, I went with a belted tunic, boots, gloves, and the mourner's hat. However, I'm sure you can make another suitable look from other clothing options. The key is just to make the aesthetic fit the overall theme of the build. As there's no stat bonuses from it, you don't need to worry too much about differing from my personal choice. The only faction I would really recommend joining is the Thieves Guild. Although I advise joining them, I don't recommend doing too many of their quests. Golden Glow Estate is certainly a job the Smuggler would be willing to take up, however I personally wouldn't recommend progressing much further. This man isn't looking to the Thieves Guild as his sole purpose in life. Instead, it's just another place for him to sell off stolen goods, and maybe pick up the odd job or two whilst he has a drink. To the Smuggler, the Thieves Guild does indeed look like it's dying, and he's not about to throw in his lot with a guild who might not make it through another year. Of course, as the viewer, you know that helping the Thieves Guild will make them a significant organisation again, but the Smuggler doesn't know this, and with his dour outlook on life as of late, he isn't going to be as hopeful as Brynjolf is. This character will not be travelling with any followers. He suffered betrayals in his past, and now will not want to risk trusting another to watch his back. I will take a quick moment to apologise for the lack of followers with my recent builds. I often find myself avoiding followers when I play a specific build for a video, and then when I'm writing these scripts, I rarely find anyone who would add anything special to the character. If you do like to travel around with a follower, feel free to. However, I would recommend coming up with a specific reason as to why. The Smuggler is a reluctant killer. Sure, he'll put a crossbow bolt between your eyes if he has to, but he'd much rather talk his way out of a situation. This build isn't meant to be played as some super combat heavy type character. Instead, it focuses more on avoidance techniques and living a more normal life in Skyrim. For the type of player who enjoys charging through dungeons and wiping every bandit off the face of the planet, this build probably isn't for you. For anyone who is looking for a slower Skyrim experience where they spend more time roleplaying and getting to know the characters that inhabit the realm, well, hopefully this build might be just what you're looking for. I personally enjoyed stealing valuables away from the wealthy houses of Skyrim, sneaking my way past bandit camps, and building up a network of fences to sell my stolen goods to. The Smuggler had spent his younger years serving in the Imperial Legion. His time in the army had taught him many things, but above all else, he had learned that a soldier's pay wasn't worth a damn. They would constantly cart off thieves and smugglers, with 10 years worth of his own wages, and they'd probably made that in a single week. It wasn't a difficult decision to decide to switch over to a life of crime. He spent his final days in the Legion learning how best to avoid getting caught. Every time they failed to catch a criminal, he would take note, and this proved invaluable. His time as a smuggler granted him unparalleled success. Out on the seas, he knew which routes weren't being watched, and back on dry land he could blend in with the crowds to avoid catching any suspicious eyes. Sadly, his success also gained him notoriety, and a bounty was placed on his head. He could hide away from most people, but his crew knew who he was, and it wasn't long before they were selling him out to the authorities. He saw a trio of soldiers walking up to him whilst he was unloading the latest cargo from their most recent raid. Without hesitation, he sprinted away, knowing all too well that trying to talk his way out wasn't an option. After a short sprint, he lost the soldiers, but there were still plenty of guards around the city. He had to sneak his way through the back alleys to avoid detection, moving cautiously and sticking to the shadows. After he had escaped the city walls, he took a carriage to the closest hold, and then immediately took another, hoping to confuse his pursuers as much as he could. When he finally stopped running, he found himself within a small mining town in Skyrim. He spent a night at the local inn, hoping to have some good sleep at long last. Sadly, when he awoke, there were a pair of Imperial soldiers looming over him, swords already drawn. His hands were bound, and he was thrown aboard a carriage heading south. The journey carried on for several days, but he knew the eventual destination would be the chopping block. It appeared that his adventure would soon be over. If you enjoyed this build, don't forget to like the video, and if you're new to the channel, subscribe for even more Skyrim builds. Additionally, if you want something else to watch, I have several different challenge runs on the channel, and I will have a brand new Skyrim challenge run coming out tomorrow. If you want to see what that's going to be, make sure you've subscribed and have clicked the notification bell so that you don't miss the video. As always, thanks for watching. Sarge out.